Hello loves, welcome back to my channel. This is a very exciting video because it's my first podcast episode ever. I'm so ecstatic to share this new podcast with you. I've been asked for a long time, and honestly, I'm just going to dive into this on this first episode. But I've been asked for many years by this YouTube community to have a podcast, and it finally feels good for me to do so. So let me know what you think in the comments. Like and subscribe if you aren't already. I haven't decided if I'm going to make all of these podcast episodes into videos and show them on my YouTube like this. So if that's something you want here, let me know in the comments. And again, I always check out the comments. So if you have any ideas for episodes or topics you'd like me to cover, just let me know. So without further ado, let's begin. Hello, my loves, and welcome to my very first podcast episode, Real Talk with Krystal. I'm truly ecstatic to begin this podcast. I've been requested to have one for years now since I first came online. And to be completely honest, it didn't feel alive for me until now. I love making videos on my YouTube. I love taking pictures for Instagram. But if you followed my journey using my voice just on its own, even for phone conversations, I don't really enjoy it. So it's been a big journey to get here to finally love using my voice in this way. And why I've called this podcast Real Talk with Krystal, I think the number one feedback that I get from this community and the community on my other platforms is my authenticity. And I think that just means that I'm real with you guys, that when I talk, it's like I'm talking to a friend. I'm just hanging out. I really don't want to make it seem like my life is just great and showing the highlight reels. I want to show beyond the highlight reels, the real. So, just showing the real parts of this human experience, which is also Tantra to me. It's really accepting all parts of this journey equally, not putting on the show that I need to be happy and strong and all these things all the time. There's beauty in our darkness and our pain, which I'm going to touch on a little bit in this first episode as well. So I will be interviewing some guests and just sharing from my heart on this podcast with the intention to just speak real. So if you follow my other platforms, my Instagram, I'm a bit vulnerable. I love writing. And that's my favorite form of expression. So my Instagram's kind of where I get to be creative in that way. And then my YouTube is more vulnerable, where I share about all parts of my experience. So this podcast, I would like to be the most vulnerable. So to begin it, I'm going to share about probably the most vulnerable and difficult time in my life. Definitely my lowest point in my life. And I've really accepted all parts of my journey. So there's really no shame or embarrassment when I share about this. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because I haven't really told this part of my story to my audience yet. And I really want to remind you that where your pain is and where your difficult moments, your insecurities, your fears, your shadows, if you want to call it that, is often where your medicine lies, where your gifts are. And again, this is the essence of Tantra, that all parts of this experience are equally divine. And even parts I'm going to share with you, I've found a great amount of peace and even love for this part of my journey because it's guided me here. And I want to share why I'm here sitting with you. I've shared parts of this story, but I really haven't shared this exact moment that I had that really changed the trajectory of my life completely. And yeah, I've never even spoke about it to anyone before. So this is the first time. And I thought that was fitting to start this podcast sharing that. And yeah, sharing why I share the things that I do with all of you. So if you're here with me, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being open to what I have to share, my story, and for being real, for not being afraid of yourself and your journey and this human experience, because there's high points, there's ecstasy, there's love, and then there's dark, there's pain. Pain is inevitable, but the suffering is optional. I've actually heard that somewhere. I don't know who it was. I'm not going to steal their quote, but that really means to me that pain is always going to happen. It's part of this experience. The suffering is the rejection of that pain. So when we actually embrace our pain and the difficult parts of our story, then we can actually find bliss there. And I have, so I can say that it's totally possible. The moment I'm about to share with you and my story is really what got me here today, really set me on the path of my mission and my purpose here. So I'm very grateful for it. So my journey began in Canada, where I actually am filming this for the first time, my first time home in many years. I've visited for short term, but I'm actually staying a few months currently. So it is actually very fitting that I'm also recording this where it all started. So growing up here in small town Canada and many parts of the world as a young woman, you are often told that your path is to just find a successful man and marry him and have his kids, and that's your life, and be a mother and a wife, and you should be happy and feel lucky that, you know, you found this, and good for you. So I was following that path. In high school, I was looking around like, who's going to be my husband? Straight out of high school, I was basically like a stay-at-home wife. I was engaged to be married when I was 19. Loved him very much. The first year of our relationship, he just spoiled me in every way possible. He was absolutely incredible, and I loved him at depths that I didn't know was humanly possible. And then it started to become very abusive on all levels, physically, emotionally, spiritually as well. Like, it just really broke my soul, and it just was getting more and more, you know, dangerous over time, to the point where I felt like my life was going to be taken. And I was in women's shelters. I didn't tell anyone about this in my life. Some nights I would go there to women's shelters for protection, and I'd hide at my sister's sometimes, but he would always come back and convince me to come back. And when you're in this cycle of toxicity and abuse, even if it's not physical abuse, for anyone who has experienced this before, it's very, very difficult to break out of. And a big part of this abuser manipulating you and getting you to this point is really isolating you from everyone you know. So I tried to have jobs to save money to get out of this relationship, and he would actually threaten my employers and make sure that I couldn't work. He isolated me from my friends and my family. And, you know, again, this happens over a period of time. It's not just like overnight. It sneaks up on you. Before you know it, you're like, what? This is my life. How did this even happen? But I was so caught up in the chaos that was my life. I never had that moment of stepping back and actually seeing what it had become. I was just in this emotional turmoil of, when is he going to cheat again? And when is he going to lie? And when is he going to come home and have a really bad day? Or he had a drug addiction and he was in and out of rehab. And it's like, it was just, you know, so chaotic, and he was trying to get me pregnant. So I was also thinking about that and planning the wedding, and this is my life. Oh my God. And everyone on the outside was telling me, wow, you're so lucky, because we looked really great on the outside. You know, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and I was only told that I could do this one thing. So I wasn't really having the space, and no one ever asked me, what do you want to do with your life? That's why when I talk to young women or anyone young now, I ask, what are your dreams? What do you want to be? Because I was never asked that when I was younger. I was told what I was meant to do here. So it all comes to this one moment, which is a little bit graphic. I will just sum it up. It was Christmas Eve. I think, I was 21, Christmas Eve, and it was like 8 a.m. This guy that I went to high school with wrote me Merry Christmas on my Facebook. My partner saw and just lost it completely. I was on the floor at one point, and he smashed my face against the toilet bowl, the like ceramic or whatever it is part. So it busted my lip open, and I was obviously hysterical. He threw me out. We were living in a condo at the time, and he threw me he threw me out into the hallway, and I was still in like my Christmas pajamas, I remember, and my slippers. And I ran outside of the building to our balcony, and I was screaming like, let me in, it's freezing. It was like -10 that day. And he just whipped my phone at me off the balcony and like told me he never wanted to see me again. And I was just, again, hysterical. I was a mess, and I was just walking. We lived up a hill outside of the town, so I had to walk all the way downtown. Would be like an hour and a half walk in -10 without a jacket. So I started walking. I had this blood frozen like to my face, down my neck, and I'm walking down this highway. There's big trucks going by. There's like slush and snow getting sprayed at me. And I just dropped to my knees, and I remember praying and actually truly meaning it. Please just end this right now. Like, I'm done. This life has been so fucking hard. Not just in this relationship, but growing up, like, you know, many of us had hard upbringings. I was one of them. Like, I didn't have that much joy in my childhood. Was okay. I was in nature a lot, which I loved, but like I didn't have much joy in my teenage years. They were so hard. And I just prayed. I'm like, please just end it now. Like, let me freeze on the side of this highway. And I just fell on the ground. And I remember going unconscious and believing I was going to die. And then in my like in and out of consciousness, I heard this Christmas music and a vehicle pull up. And I thought for sure it was my partner coming to check if I'm okay. When I opened my eyes, it was this red van. And I couldn't see because, you know, it was like steamy from the snow and the cold. And I'm like, who is this? It's obviously going to be someone asking me for if I need help. And the windows slowly went down because in Canada it's cold and sometimes our windows are stuck. So it was just this moment of anticipation, like who's there? And it's just slowly rolling down. And it's this family. I'm guessing that it was grandparents and 2 young children. And they were all looking at me with the exact same expression on their face of just like, what is wrong with this creature on the side of the road? Like, I don't even know if she's human, because that's how I felt. I just felt like such a wreck. And they looked shocked and disgusted, honestly. And I waited for them to say something and to offer help. And instead, the window went back up and they drove off. And in that moment, it was the first time since the start of that relationship, maybe even the first time in my whole life, that I really stepped back from my life and looked at it from a stranger's perspective or from a third person perspective. And I didn't like what I saw. Obviously, not many of us would in that position. And I really never noticed up to that point how bad it was. And like, why is this my life? I knew there was like this internal knowing that life is meant to be enjoyed. It's meant to be beautiful. And I've been around people experiencing love and bliss. And why isn't that my life? And it was the first time I didn't have much self-love. I was in the modeling industry that really, you know, messed me up. And just being a young woman, it's really hard to love yourself in today's society and the media. So and then I had a partner telling me that I was, you know, I'd never amount to anything, that I would never be anything. And I really didn't have much self-love or self-worth. And that was the first moment in my life that I felt so strongly I deserve so much more than this, like so much more. This is not the life I deserve. This is not the life for me. And it all came from just looking through their eyes, like, what did this family think of me? Obviously, they probably thought I was some kind of crazy drug addict, like blood on my face, crying, laying on the side of a highway. Like, how is that my life? Really? And through all this chaos, I really didn't realize, like, wow, this is my life. This is what it became. And from that point, I ran to a 7-Eleven. This young man that was working there took off his jacket and put it on me and washed the blood off of me. And he was just the sweetest. Like, I'll never forget his face. And he just took care of me in that moment, charged my phone. I went to my sister's, who I hadn't seen in like over a year, even though we were in the same town. And shortly after that, I borrowed money. I had like under $100 in my bank account. I went to China. I ended up living in Asia for 6 years and traveling the world and living the life of my dreams, beyond my wildest dreams. And, that's very summed up. It was not easy to get here. It was not easy to heal from all of the abuse and, the trauma of my childhood as well. But I really prioritized myself and my road of self-love and empowerment. In Asia, I began sharing my story with a shaking voice, with shaking hands. I was so scared to use my voice, but I continued because I knew I was meant to. I started sharing my story and teaching yoga at women's shelters. While I was traveling, I started this program called Warrior Lotus Yoga, and that was due to the fact that yoga had helped me so much on my path to finding my strength. So I started sharing, and that's really how this career of empowerment based around women's empowerment and just sharing really, is that a word? No, realistically, I don't know, sharing very real with you, real talk with Krystal. That's where it came from, because there was a point, through all of that chaos, I just remember being on the bathroom floor and feeling so hopeless and praying and wishing that there was just someone out there who had gone through what I had been through and survived it. And not only survived it, but that she thrived from it. Like, she really, I wanted to just find some badass woman out there who'd been through this abuse that I'd been through and been through shit in her childhood and came out of it stronger. And back then, that was before social media was a big thing, and I was never on social media anyways because I was just so isolated. I was looking in like libraries to see if there's anyone with a story like mine, but I couldn't take out the books because my partner would see. So I really had no support system. I tried reaching out to this therapist who basically just shut me down. It was really discouraging for me. And he basically said, unless I'm suicidal, he just can't help me, which was really weird looking back on it. But I just felt so embarrassed for trying to reach out to someone about it that I didn't try again. So basically, my whole intention with coming online through all of these ways, for writing books, for sharing my courses, really the foundation intention of it all is to remind you that you're not alone in your struggles, because that was me at one point in my life, really just wishing to know that I wasn't alone. And we all go through darkness. We all have dark night of the soul. Doesn't matter how you were raised or where you were raised. We all have our own struggles. It's not like, was your childhood worse than mine, or whether you grew up externally, it looks like great on paper. You had a great family, were well off, like all of those things. You still have your own struggles, and they shouldn't be minimized in any kind of way, shape, or form. We all struggle in our own way. And this is also how I ended up teaching Tantra, is really realizing that we can embrace our pain and we can transmute it into really building the life of our dreams. We can take those painful moments and use them as building blocks to build the life of our dreams. That's exactly what I did. And really owning our past. And when we own those moments and when we accept them and accept those parts of ourselves, then that's when we're liberated, and that's when we reach bliss. It's not when we pretend that we have it all figured out and we don't have these bad moments and this stuff didn't happen to us in the past. So everything's la-di-da, like, everything's just fine in my life. No, it's when you really own those parts. So we can turn our pain into purpose in this way. And what I would love for you to take from this story is to take a step back from your own life at this time. Really being honest with yourself. Taking a step back, look at your life through the eyes of a stranger. Even try it now. Just close your eyes for a moment and try that. Stepping away from your emotions, your thoughts, your judgments, and simply just witnessing, like you just pulled up in a red van, looking at your life. What do you see? And is this truly the life that you want? Be so honest with yourself. We can rebirth at any time. You aren't stuck. You aren't stuck. We create these commitments that don't fulfill us. Like, we can change. We can rebirth. As far as we know, we have this one life. And it may be time to risk it all for the life that you love. To me, risking it all was being the first person in my family to leave Canada, jump on a plane. Everyone had masks. It's a normal thing, but all of these, Chinese people had masks on their face. It was so scary for me. I'd never seen anyone wear like these medical masks, and I was the only Canadian Caucasian on the plane. I just remember panicking. I didn't even research where I was going. I just knew I had to get as far away from Canada as I possibly could. And whenever I, dug in the ground, my dad as a child, he'd tell me, keep digging, you'll get to China. So I was just going as far as I could go. And it was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life, getting on that flight. But everything that happened to me after I landed there has just been like, it's everything, and you've heard it before. On the other side of your fears is the life of your dreams, is your greatest liberation. Spend this life truly doing what you love. I wish that for you so much, and to really follow and do what makes you feel most alive. Follow your bliss, open to even the difficult parts. You can find bliss in that too. Open to the idea that your purpose might be in your shadows, in the parts of you that you haven't fully accepted yet. So I hope you've received something from this first episode. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'm so honored if you've made it through this, that you're interested in this, and I hope it helps you in some way. And I can't wait to share more with you on this podcast and see where this journey takes us. Also, just to connect on a deeper level with you and bring some amazing humans on here, share their stories as well. Sending so much love, and I will see you in the next episode.